Welcome back to our channel. That 1958 wheat penny or 1961 or 1964 Lincoln cent in your pocket. Don't ignore it. A 1958 Nomint mark in MS-67 sold for $11,645, and a 1958 DMS-67 fetched nearly $12,400. A pristine 1961 DMS-67 is worth $9,700 to $14,400, and a top-graded 1964 SMS proof sold for over $15,000. Could yours be a hidden gold mine? Like and subscribe to uncover penny treasures. The year 1958 was a quiet yet pivotal moment in American coinage, tucked into the waning years of the beloved wheat penny design. Since 1909, Lincoln's portrait had graced the obverse, and the iconic wheat stalks flanked by the denomination on the reverse had become a familiar sight in pockets and registers. By the late 1950s, the U.S. Mint was running at full efficiency, striking millions of cents each day to meet the demands of a booming post-war economy. The Philadelphia and Denver mints churned out over 800 million 1-cent coins in 1958, most of them unremarkable, destined for years of heavy circulation. Yet within this mountain of copper slipped a handful of coins that would come to bewilder experts and captivate collectors. That spring, as new dies were prepared and polished for another busy run, a subtle mishap occurred at the Philadelphia Mint. A hubbing process, meant to press the coin's design into a die, was repeated imperfectly, leaving a doubling of the date and inscriptions. This doubling was bold enough to be noticed but subtle enough that inspectors missed it during the hectic rush of production. The double die obverse error was born, though only a few dies carried it before the mistake was corrected. Thousands of 1958 cents rolled off the presses that day, yet only a precious few carried the rare doubling. To the mint workers, it was just another day, another shipment of gleaming pennies heading out into the world. It took years before anyone noticed. For much of the late 1950s and early 1960s, the double-die wheat penny of 1958 remained hidden in circulation, indistinguishable from its countless identical siblings. The wheat reverse design itself would be retired the very next year, replaced by the Lincoln Memorial in 1959, making the double-die error even more elusive. Then came a fateful afternoon in 1968 when a young collector named Harold Pruitt, already fascinated with Lincoln cents, sat at his kitchen table sorting through a bag of old pennies from a bank. Under the bright glow of a desk lamp, Harold's sharp eyes caught something unusual. The date on one coin seemed thicker, slightly shadowed, and the letters "In God We Trust" showed what looked like a faint second impression. He thought at first his eyes were tired, but magnification only deepened his suspicion. Every letter and digit on the obverse bore the telltale doubling of a significant error. Harold felt his pulse quicken. He had heard stories of the 1955 double-die penny, a highly sought-after prize among collectors even then. Could this be another one? His hands trembled slightly as he compared his find to other 1958 cents. It was unmistakably different. After consulting a few seasoned numismatists and sending the coin off to a grading service, the results came back with stunning confirmation: a genuine double-die obverse. At the time, it was thought to be one of only 3 known examples. The news rippled through the tight-knit community of collectors, sparking immediate interest and a flurry of activity. Throughout the 1970s, the coin's reputation grew. A handful more examples surfaced, but not many. Each discovery was met with excitement and more scrutiny. Some thought there might be dozens out there, tucked away in jars or forgotten drawers, but years of searching turned up only a few more. By the 1980s, it was clear the 1958 double-die wheat penny was not just rare, it was one of the rarest errors of the entire series. Harold held onto his discovery, watching its value climb steadily through the years in auction houses and collector circles. The coin began to take on an almost mythical aura. Early sales in the 1980s fetched thousands of dollars, and each subsequent auction seemed to set a new record. Stories began to circulate of collectors scouring rolls, hoping against hope to find one more example. But as time passed and none appeared, the existing population remained incredibly small, likely under 10 in any grade. The mystique of the coin only deepened as speculation grew about how many had truly survived. Harold's original coin, remarkably well preserved, became the centerpiece of his collection. He declined offer after offer, turning down increasingly large sums as the decades wore on. In the early 2000s, the few certified examples of the 1958 double-die wheat penny began to bring jaw-dropping prices at major auctions. Collectors who specialized in error coins regarded it as a holy grail, a piece that combined the historic end of the wheat reverse with a spectacular minting mistake. By 2015, Harold finally decided the time had come to let it go. The coin went to auction, drawing bidders from all corners of the collecting world. The room was tense, the air electric with anticipation as the bidding began. Voices rang out confidently at first, then more measured as the stakes rose higher and higher. The final hammer price brought an audible gasp, cementing the 1958 double-die wheat penny as one of the most coveted Lincoln cents ever struck. And on that night, when the final number was announced, it became clear that this small, unassuming copper coin, once dismissed as just another penny, now stood proudly valued between $64,000 and $142,000. In 1961, the United States Mint was busier than ever, responding to an ever-growing demand for coinage in a thriving post-war economy. The Lincoln cent, introduced in 1909, remained the humble workhorse of American commerce, still bearing its dignified wheat stalk reverse design after more than 50 years in production. The Philadelphia and Denver mints operated at full capacity, striking over 1 billion pennies that year alone. To most, the 1961 cent seemed ordinary, its copper surface destined for cash registers and piggy banks. But somewhere in the relentless clatter of presses and dies, a subtle imperfection crept into the process. It was small enough to evade inspection, yet dramatic enough that, once noticed, it would capture the imagination of collectors for generations. On a crisp autumn morning that year, a die intended for a new batch of pennies was improperly aligned during hubbing. The hub left a faint yet distinctive doubling on the letters and numbers of the obverse design. The mint, prioritizing quantity over painstaking examination, let the die continue to strike thousands of coins before it was retired. Most of the error coins slipped silently into circulation, their flaw unnoticed by both mint officials and the public. For months they moved from bank vaults to cash drawers to spare change in countless homes, blending in perfectly with their flawless counterparts. It wasn't until the early 1970s that this error began to reveal itself. In a quiet Midwestern town, a dedicated collector named Marjorie Hunt was searching through boxes of pennies she had purchased from a local bank. For her, it was an almost meditative ritual, examining coins under magnification, looking for minute varieties and hidden treasures. Hours would pass unnoticed as she sorted through roll after roll. But on one particular evening, her lamp caught the gleam of a coin that seemed off. Marjorie paused and adjusted her loupe. The date, 1961, appeared thicker than usual. The letters in Liberty showed faint shadows, as though they had been struck twice. Even the motto, "In God We Trust," seemed doubled. Her pulse quickened as she set the coin aside and dug deeper, scanning every 1961 penny in her hoard. The more she looked, the clearer it became. She had stumbled on something rare. She reached out to fellow collectors and sent her find to a grading service for authentication. Weeks later, the confirmation came back: double die obverse. The designation alone was enough to spark a flurry of excitement among specialists. Not only was it a double die, but it was also remarkably crisp, with the doubling clearly visible even to the naked eye. Marjorie's hands shook slightly when she read the letter. She had found a spectacular variety that no one had officially documented yet. Word of her discovery spread quickly. Soon other collectors began combing through their own 1961 cents, hoping to find another example. A few surfaced here and there, but they were rare, remarkably rare for a series that produced over 1 billion coins that year. By the late 1970s, the 1961 double die cent was acknowledged as one of the more dramatic errors in Lincoln cent history, notable both for its distinct appearance and its elusive nature. Over the following decades, Marjorie watched the value of her find steadily climb. In the early 1980s, the few examples that reached auction brought several $1,000s each, with prices rising noticeably as demand grew and supply remained tiny. By the 1990s, prices surged again as collectors of Lincoln cents, already a devoted community, began competing for the few certified specimens. The wheat reverse had been replaced by the Lincoln Memorial in 1959, making this error a relic of the transitional years and even more appealing. For Marjorie, each passing year added a new layer of pride. She declined numerous offers to sell, despite being approached by dealers and collectors who understood the rarity of what she owned. Her 1961 double die remained the crown jewel of her collection, and she became something of a minor celebrity among coin enthusiasts who admired both her luck and her keen eye. The few coins that have changed hands in public auctions have fetched increasingly astonishing sums. Each sale set new benchmarks, drawing national attention within the numismatic world. The doubling itself, visible yet elegant, was cited as one of the finest examples of the mint's occasional but fascinating mechanical imperfections. When Marjorie finally decided to part with her treasure, the moment carried both joy and nostalgia. The coin that had sat under her lamp all those years ago now sat under the spotlights of a packed auction room. Bidders from across the country competed, voices firm at first and then more hesitant as the stakes climbed. The atmosphere grew tense as the bidding passed one milestone after another, each number higher than the last. And when the hammer finally fell, it was clear just how far that little copper cent had come since slipping unnoticed out of the Philadelphia Mint. Its final value stood proudly between $54,000 and $132,000. The year was 1964, and the United States Mint was working tirelessly to meet the nation's insatiable demand for coins. With silver shortages looming and public concern growing, the Mint was under immense pressure, striking billions of coins in every denomination. The humble Lincoln cent, still bearing the familiar wheat stalks of its reverse design, was produced in staggering numbers that year. Over 3 billion pennies flowed out of the presses in Philadelphia and Denver combined, a testament to just how much the American economy relied on this little copper coin. And yet, buried somewhere in those billions, an unusual and unintended flaw quietly made its way into circulation. That happened during one of the countless shifts when dies were being prepared in haste. A single working die was struck improperly by the hub, leaving faint but unmistakable doubling on the letters and numerals. Normally, such an imperfection would have been caught by quality control and removed before ever touching a blank planchet. But the sheer volume of production in 1964 overwhelmed even the most diligent inspectors, and so the flawed die went unnoticed. Day after day, it continued to strike hundreds, perhaps thousands of pennies, each one carrying a subtle distortion on its face. They left the mint in bags and boxes, distributed across the country, indistinguishable from the countless other copper coins minted that year. For years, no one seemed to notice. The 1964 penny was so common that few collectors even bothered to give it a second look. Decades passed before one of those hidden treasures finally revealed itself. In a quiet suburban home, a retired schoolteacher named Walter Green sat at his kitchen table, working through his lifelong hobby of searching bank rolls for overlooked rarities. It was a calm evening, the kind Walter loved most. Just him, his magnifying glass, and the steady clink of pennies being sorted into piles. At first, the coin didn't strike him as anything remarkable. Another 1964 cent, its copper surface dulled from years in pockets and registers. But when he turned it under his lamp, something strange caught his eye. The letters of Liberty seemed to have shadows. The date, too, appeared thicker than usual, with what looked like a faint second impression barely offset from the first. His heart began to race. He reached for his loupe, leaning in closer, and confirmed it, doubling, clear and sharp on the obverse. Walter's hands trembled as he set the coin aside. Over the next several hours, he went through the rest of the rolls, hoping against hope to find another like it. But there were none. Just that one mysterious penny, quietly carrying a secret it had held since the day it left the mint. Unsure of what he'd found, Walter began writing to experts, sending photographs and eventually mailing the coin to a professional grading service for authentication. Weeks passed before the results arrived, but the news was everything he'd hoped for. The coin had been verified as a double die obverse, a rare and striking variety for the Lincoln cent series. The doubling was dramatic yet precise, making it one of the most desirable errors a collector could hope to find. Walter's discovery was soon reported in collector newsletters and price guides, sparking a surge of interest among numismatists who had never seen such a crisp example from that year. As word spread, others began searching through their own collections. A few more examples surfaced here and there, but they remained incredibly rare, a handful at most from the billions minted in 1964. Auction houses began featuring them in high-profile sales, each appearance drawing fierce bidding as collectors competed for one of the few known specimens. The doubling, so subtle it could easily be missed by the casual observer, became a symbol of just how rewarding patience and a keen eye could be. Over the years, Walter watched the value of his find climb steadily. In the late 1970s, it was already worth more than he'd ever dreamed a single penny could fetch. By the 1990s, as the market for Lincoln cents grew more competitive, the price of certified examples rose sharply. Even as more coins entered the market, demand far outstripped supply, driving prices ever higher. When Walter finally decided it was time to part with his treasure, the decision was bittersweet. That penny had become more than just a coin. It was a story, a memory of a quiet evening when the ordinary turned extraordinary. But he knew it deserved a place in someone else's collection, to inspire and delight another generation of collectors. The auction. The atmosphere was electric. Bidders from across the country watched as the coin was displayed under bright lights, its doubled features clear even from a distance. The opening bid came quickly, followed by another and another as the price climbed higher and higher. The crowd grew tense, the auctioneer's voice rising with each new number. And then, at last, the hammer fell. The little copper cent that had slipped through the mint unnoticed and hidden in circulation for decades had found its place in history, fetching a final price between $50,000 and $124,000.